We are now in the final stretch, and soon you in our audience will be choosing the winner. And recall that at the start of the debate, we asked you whether you took sides with or against the motion before us, which is, it is wrong to pay for sex. Here are the results from your vote before the debate. 20% of you were for the motion that it is wrong to pay for sex. 50% were against, and 30% were undecided. And we don't have it on the graphic, but I'll share with you that in the for category, it was 2-to-1 women to men. In the against category, it was 3-to-2 men to women. And undecided was roughly equal. So we're going to go to closing statements now. That's round 3. And right after that, we will ask you to vote another time. And remember, we're going to end twice, once with the simple results, and then round of applause from all of you. And then we will share with you the breakdown by sex for those votes. So on to round 3, closing statements by each of the debaters. Speaking first against the motion, Lionel Tiger, anthropology professor at Rutgers University.
You're using my time. Basically, I'll have to repeat, I'm afraid, what I already said, which is that we have taken a subset of human behavior which we all disagree with and despise, which is coercive, which is, as the speaker just before mentioned, is covered by painfully wrought criminal law and so on. And we've turned that into a metaphor and then a description of the common human experience that we all have of men and women, or men and men, or women and women together. And somehow, in the description, we lose the generosity of spirit, the sense of adventure, the intensity, and let us not forget, and not mentioning primates again, but sex is about human evolution, it's about reproduction, it's the most important thing any species has to attend to. And it would be a great surprise if it were not confounded by glitches, sometimes tragic ones. It would be a great surprise if everyone was in agreement about it. We have, talking about prostitution, Indian girls are betrothed at the age of 4 to a guy who's 5, and they are married, but they obviously can't perform as married couples until they reach a certain age. The Kama Sutra, that famous book that nobody's ever been able to succeed in emulating, was given to the new couple when they finally were married so they could practice this great craft of sex. All I want to protect here is the notion that sex is not a disease, that sexual interaction is not necessarily an exploitative phenomenon, that it has its own legitimacy, its own agenda, and it will and has continued in much the same way, and a sensible society will try to make it better, not to criminalize it.
Thank you, Lionel Tiger. I want to point out that in our closing round, each debater is given a brief amount of time, 2 minutes each, to make a closing statement and a final appeal for your vote. And now, summarizing her position for the motion, Wendy Shalit, author of The Good Girl Revolution, Young Rebels with Self-Esteem and High Standards.
Thank you. I certainly agree that sex is not a disease, so I'm glad we can perhaps all agree on that. Look, nobody has addressed my point that no one asks the ages of the girls when they pay for sex, and that is the link between the trafficking of children as well. And so you want to, I think, consider that. That's something that nobody has addressed, and it makes those paying for sex responsible. Look, I think since the 1960s, we've been beholden to this false dichotomy that, you know, you're either a repressed person who has no feelings, or the prudes, or you're liberated, who goes around with everyone and treats sex casually. And I don't think this dichotomy really captures the experience of most women, or most men for that matter. And I think we need to revive the idea of higher standards for both sexes. and that sex is a good thing, but we don't have to take advantage of the most vulnerable in our society when we choose our sexual partners. The devaluing of women and children's innocence that happens in a society that makes sex into a commodity, to validate that and to declare that paying for sex is perfectly fine, is to say something about society's relationship to women and especially girls that I think would be detrimental, but also to men. Yes, we've all read that Times article about sugar daddies, but to me what was so touching is the man who went on the website and he just gave the girl a monthly stipend for her education, and he refused to have sex with her. And this is what the debate is about. It's about who we want to be. And who knows the far-reaching consequences of that he went on this somewhat depressing website, but he was capable of such greatness and saying, no, you know what, I'm not going to pay for sex. And if you think that what the man did didn't matter, that he supported her education without even meeting her, and you think he could have just easily paid for sex, and that would have been the same choice morally, then vote for the negative team. But if you can see the beauty in that choice, which he made in the privacy of his own home, and not in any courtroom, then vote for the proposition, because we're not a monkey, men are not monkeys, and women are not chicken. Thank you.
Thank you. Summarizing against the motion, Tyler Cowen, economics professor at George Mason University.
Rather than repeat my major points, I'd like to focus on one small answer. The issue came up, what if a man is a quadriplegic and wants to buy sex? The opposition still hasn't answered this question. In my opinion, their responses were, to put it bluntly, lame. Women will come around, let's teach women disability should not be a problem. That's fine, no one will disagree with that. But what about ... There simply was no answer. The other side would have been much better off simply saying, look, that's an exception to the principle, in that case it's fine. But they cannot bring themselves to give that humane answer. I think when push comes to shove, there's something about the notion of informed, consenting adults, which is what's at stake here, making an exchange that they simply do not like. If you're in any doubt, just consider different parts of the world and where they would line up in this debate. The notion that there are real abuses, but that buying sex is something that we should tolerate, is extremely common in Western Europe. The kinds of arguments you're hearing on the other side. If you look at the debates over prostitution in the country of Iran, you hear exactly, and I mean exactly, the same arguments in Iran that you have heard from the people on the other side of this debate. If you look at what some aspects of the religious right push for, the arguments they make, it is very similar to what you have heard on the other side of this debate. If you're in any doubt, ask yourself, in which set of societies with which set of attitudes would you rather live? Western Europe, or the kinds of places and cultures where the attitude toward prostitution is that which you find to my right? Think about that, and then please vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler Cowen.